Our next speaker, Mr. Utpal Seth, a veteran in the capital market. He's been in the business of investing for over 30 years, the CEO and senior partner of Rare Enterprise. He manages a multi-billion-dollar proprietary asset management firm. Today, he engages with investees, companies to enhance shareholder value by emphasizing the certain value drivers. Primarily, he concentrates on all kinds of investing, which is long-term, equity, portfolio construction, risk management. He is also the co-founder and mentor of Trust Group. Trust Group is the leading fixed income firm which has evolved into full financial house. In Trust Group, his focus is on strategy and team building. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Utpal Seth.
Good day to everyone present here. Now we have a wonderful opportunity of interacting with none other than the great Sri Sunil Singhal. In the morning, we got to know about his professional achievements. We got to hear a lot about his thought process and what are his various advice and what we need to really learn and keep in mind, economy and all that stuff. But what we are going to do now is to take a little bit of a journey into his personal life. Sir, with your permission.
Thank you.
So we are here to learn how Sunil ji has actually started off his career, how his journey has been from chartered accountant and how he transitioned into what he is currently doing. And I'm sure this is going to be a very exciting story for all of us to hear. And let us not waste any more time in the process of introductions, and let's get on to right away understanding from Sunil ji about his exciting career. Sir, welcome, and again we thank you so much for taking your time out and coming all the way from India to here and to spend your time with all of us.
No, it's my pleasure, and particularly because it's a CA community and I am also a chartered accountant, so it feels as if you are in the midst of your brothers and sisters, you know.
Absolutely, sir. It's a real privilege to say that you are a chartered accountant, and therefore, we get that pride out of, what you are. So before we start off with the journey of the career itself, I would like to ask you a little personal question to learn about your family background, because most of us, we feel, when we are into our career, especially with doing CA, we talk that, okay, we have a father who is a CA, grandfather who is a CA, and somebody who is not able to do well just blames it on the generation above. You say, I don't have a father a CA, and therefore I cannot do things. So we really want to understand about your family background and what basically made you to to get into this.
Sure. No, so I think thank you again. So like all Indians my age, I think I belong to a very modest middle class family. We are 5 brothers, sisters. I am the youngest. And my father worked with a Birla company for 50 years. First job and the last job. And actually when I was growing up, obviously my elder brothers and sisters are quite older to me, but the immediate younger sister, or elder sister to me, but the youngest and second youngest in the family, she was a science student. And when during her basically when she used to study at home, and sometimes she used to even dissect earthworms and cockroaches, and I got really put off by what she was doing. And in those times we did not have the kind of options which kids right now have,
Right.
So it was either commerce, arts or science. So arts was predominantly considered to be only for girls, so that left you with only science and commerce. And science I did not want to do because I got put off by what she was doing. So the only option left was commerce. So so that was the starting point, that ultimately you have to go in for commerce. So I got good marks in my 10th standard. I got admitted to a college called Narsimhanji NM College in Juhu, Mumbai. I'm born and brought up in Mumbai, though my ancestors are from Rajasthan. And during college, again, once you have taken commerce, the very logical thing to do was do your CA. Luckily for me, when I was in just starting my CA, that was the last attempt where you could do your CA along with your graduation.
Okay.
So it was a do or die, like the CA entrance. If you pass, you would be able to do it along with your graduation. Otherwise, you know, you would have lost 3 years.
3 years.
Because then you would have had to do after BCom. And I was a good student. I passed my entrance, you know, on my first attempt, and there I was, you know, doing chartered accountancy.
Okay.
So I would say that you know, very humble background, but good sort of thoughts, good learnings, and good teachings from parents and elder siblings. But you know, going into chartered accountancy was a mix of lack of options and and I would say cutting down the choices which you had.
I can fully resonate with what you just said, because you know, most of us, at least at the generation that we're talking about, had this way of getting into the profession. So coming forward from there, could you let us know about your first employment as a CA? What were the options at that time which were in front of you, and how you chose the one which you did?
Sure. So you know, I started my CA, and I was a good student, and I completed my exams, all 3 exams, entrance, inter, and then the final in first attempt. And in fact,
wow.
I got an all India rank, and I was only 20 and some months when I finished my CA final. And you must all be aware that till you are 21, you don't get your certificate. So I had to wait for 6-7 months to get my certificate. My articleship was with my uncle, Chacha.
Okay.
He was a chartered accountant. He was the first chartered accountant in our family. And you know, while doing articles with him, I thought that, you know, I've seen my father and my elder brothers work for someone else. I wanted to do something on my own at that point of time. I was very young. So I joined my uncle, and I started to sort of practice for 5-6 years. Very, very young. But I would say that those were good years, because my formative, I would say the whole analytical skills which I think I got was from writing accounts, auditing, visiting sales tax, income tax, company law offices, you know, balance sheets. The whole interest of balance sheets, which I still have, came during my those period. But somewhere, you know, I was always interested in equity markets, you know, and that also came from reading balance sheets of companies which my father owned shares in, and that time you had to get physical you know, balance sheets. And I don't know how I started liking them. And also during my practice years, I had a couple of clients who were BSE brokers. That time only Bombay Stock Exchange existed. And it was very fascinating to go into that tall building and, you know, hear the open outcry system. It was like a ring where, you know, the brokers used to come and shout, and the trades used to happen. It was very fascinating. So that caught my interest. And luckily for me, NSE was planning to come into operation in 1994. I had a very close friend whose in-laws were quite wealthy, and they wanted to basically apply for the NSE membership.
Okay.
And that time you had to give an exam to apply for the membership. And they thought that, you know, Sunil is very smart, he will pass the exam. So they made me a director in their company and said, you give the exam. And you know, obviously we got the membership, and then they offered me to join them as a working partner. So that was my transition from being in practice to going into equity markets. And it is not that I did not like practice, but I felt that I was not utilizing my intelligence and passion in practice. It was a little bit, how do I say, it's very inefficient system. I don't know how it is today, but that time it was. And equity markets, I thought that, you know, this is something which really interested me. So that was a transition from a practicing chartered accountant to someone who was full time into equity markets.
Actually, there are very, very few rare, you know, who probably I would have seen, who have completed the CA and just waiting for the age to be attained in order to get the certificate. And it's really so wonderful to see that you're one of them. and not only that, getting a rank and all that in CA, and then taking into practice and moving. So in fact, I wanted to ask you, what was that aha moment, for you to get into the equity markets? But now it's very clear. So you had the passion and you went into as a director into the equity markets. But is there a moment where you can define that, okay, this really confirmed my decision of coming here, and yes, this is where I'm going to succeed?
So, see, once I joined the equity market, it is not that it was like, I was very young. It was not that my path was very visible in front of me. I just joined the equity markets out of passion. And in fact, when I joined this broking company, we had no experience of broking. And what I just did was I went ahead and tied up with all the BSE brokers to do their trades on NSE, and that's how we started to do well. But somewhere again around 96, 97, I started to feel that the intelligence was not being used, because we were just execution brokers. There was no research, nothing. There was no advice given to clients. The clients used to say, buy this, sell this, and we used to just execute.
More like a transaction broker.
Yeah. And that is where, again, there was a little bit of vacuum. But one thing, right from my school days, I was sort of always ahead wherever I got a leadership opportunity. So even in the school, there was one incident, when I was in class 7, and we used to have an elocution competition, which was only for class 10 students. And I was a very small young guy, and I just went to my principal and said, I want to participate in this elocution competition. And I used to be in a school called St. Anne's, where the principals used to be very, very strict. And everyone used to fear, but I just went. And he just saw me, laughed, and allowed me to participate, and I won the elocution competition. So I think even in the broking, that leadership sort of, you can call it the Kida, came in. I was instrumental in forming the Association of NSE Members of India.
Okay.
So I was a promoter director, and there I came across a gentleman called Pashupati Advani, who had just returned from Wall Street and set up a base in India. And I got very friendly with him, and I joined him. So from a retail or an execution broking outfit, I moved to the institutional side. And that is where the whole interest of balance sheet got translated into actually formally analyzing balance sheets, dealing with foreign investors, dealing with local mutual funds. And from, I would say, the 97 to 2003 was a period where I learned a lot. Okay. Learned a lot about equity research, learned a lot about the boom and bust, because that time, if you remember, there was this Y2K and the whole technology boom. In India, you had Ketan Parekh, and how the market just ballooned. And then from 2001 to 2003, it was global recession. You had 9/11 in the US.
Right.
There was a tech bust. Even in India, the scam broke out.
Yes.
So from like, nothing to the peak, and then back to 2003. I think that was a big learning. So I would say that was like a transition where you learned a lot about what equity market is all about.
Markets. So this move obviously would have brought in the analytical side and the research side of equity markets.
Right.
And I would say that it will not be an exaggeration if I say that you are pioneer not only just in institutionalizing it, but also getting the equity markets from a mere transactional mundane thing to something more of a research.
Yeah, but I'll tell you very funnily, in 2003, stocks were so cheap in India, so cheap, and no one was looking at buying it. And we used to come out with research reports on stocks, and they looked so compelling, but we could not convince anyone to buy it. So as a someone working with a broker, I then decided that I want to buy my own stock, and that is where I decided to move from the sell side to the buy side. Okay. And I think that was a turning moment as far as my transition into becoming a fund manager was. So 2003, all the mutual funds were my clients. I reached out to them, 3-4 offered me to come and join them, but I decided to join the smallest mutual fund at that point of time, which was Reliance Mutual Fund. So we were 35th out of 35 mutual funds in 2003. Total corpus of only 40-50 crore rupees. That's it. And I joined them, and from there I think Reliance Mutual Fund never looked back, and I think even I would say with every passing year, my interest in managing money, and maybe you learn from mistakes, so the success also sort of followed.
Yeah, it just followed. So that's very, very, very nice to hear. So one interesting thing which I picked up from what you said is the risk-taking appetite of people. When you looked at 2003 versus now. So what is the shift that you see in terms of risk-taking? Between that period and now.
I would not say risk taking. In 2003, unfortunately, no one used to even look at balance sheets. And I mentioned earlier that I was very interested in reading balance sheets, and I could see stocks so cheap. Even now I read 1,000 to 1,200 balance sheets a year because that is my passion. So it was quite easy to pick stocks, because no one was looking at it, and the stocks were so cheap, and no one was reading balance sheets. Obviously, it took time for those stocks to come into the mainframe and for them to perform, but when they performed, they really, really performed. I think the markets, equity markets in India have graduated, have become more mature. It's become more, I would say the depth has increased, the number of participants have increased, the number of analysts are now in thousands and lakhs. So it is good from a market perspective, but it is also challenging from an investor perspective. Because as the markets mature, the inefficiencies of the market keep on coming down. And if the inefficiencies keep on coming down, obviously the effort to make returns increases. So it is good in a way, but I'm just saying that it's changed a lot. And I would not say the risk-taking ability has increased, but the awareness from investors have increased. They now know that equity markets are not some speculation or a lottery or a gambling kind of a place. This is a place where you can very, very clearly invest for the long term, create a lot of wealth. If you research what you want to invest in properly, if you have the time, for your investments to grow, nothing can be better than this in a rising economy.
Absolutely. So going back to the ecosystem that you have created in terms of the research and analysis, I think that would have played a very pivotal or big role in the change in the mindset as well. So in the absence of any research, obviously it is more of a gambling. So now with all this research available to them, obviously any investor will have this comfort of getting into the markets. Right?
So it's a combination of a lot of things. I think our regulators have also become quite intense and on the ball. I think there is no place for any mischief. They come down very, very heavily. Media has played a big role, and as I said, awareness has increased. Portfolios of all managers are available online, and if even one stock goes here and there, how the Twitters of the world and all the all the media guys will point it out. So I think the scrutiny is very intense, which is good because it keeps you on your toes. Sometimes it's not fair also, because from a portfolio manager perspective, if you are investing in 20 stocks, it's always possible that you go wrong in 2 or 3 or 4 of them.
Right.
But the world is very ruthless, but you have to live with it.
You have to live with it, obviously. So talking about regulator, you drew attention to one very interesting aspect of your career. You worked with the CFA Institute in their board, and you have also worked with the IFRS Foundation, which lays the standards for the entire world. CFA, I would say, is more of an academic, and whereas here it's on a practical scale, you are going to tell companies how they need to report. So how do you feel from your perspective as a difference in the approach in these two? One is, I would say, completely academic. Maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong. The other one is more practical, directly into the corporates.
No, I think one other important facet of something which has helped me a lot in my life has been the CFA course. So, I did my CFA when I was working as a broker. It was a new sort of a course which had come out, US based but globally recognized, and sort of the course for everyone or anyone who wanted to be on the investment side. So I did it around 2000 during that period. I was lucky, I cleared it in the first attempt, and what I also did, that leadership Kida came in, and India did not have a society that time, a CFA society. So I formed the CFA society, and I was the president for 8 years, and then I was the first Indian to be inducted in the global board of CFA Institute. So I think what it did was, one, the CFA course was a global sort of, it gave me a global perspective. CA is a good foundation course, good course for anything to do with accountancy and a lot of other ancillary things. The CFA course is predominantly, it's the financial analyst course, so it's focused only on investment. So I think the course was good, and because of my this leadership role, I was able to travel all around the world. My co-board members, when I was on the board for 6 years from 2013 to 2019, were all luminaries from different countries. And we used to have in-person meetings 4 times a year. So those 3-day meetings 4 times a year was like the best practical knowledge and experience you could have ever got.
Absolutely.
And I think you learned how this is done globally. So, you know, in India, the mutual fund industry that time was only 15, 20 years old. Now, even now, it's only 30 years old. But in the US, developed world, they have been like for centuries, you know. So that really opened my life. So I won't say it's academic, it was practical. And the last 1 year of my board position in the CFA Institute was as a chairman of their investment committee. So they had a $500 million corpus, which I was managing as the chairman without getting paid for it. And this was money which was invested globally. So I think that knowledge also came in handy. At IFRS, it's more to do with the accounting standards, but pertaining to the capital market. So it's the IFRS Capital Market Advisory Committee, of which I am a member. Unfortunately, this coincided with COVID, so we have not had too many in-person meetings. And you know, meetings virtually are good, but you don't get the same feeling, the same warmth, you know. But it's been a sort of a good sort of experience, and it also allows me to contribute and give back to the profession in some manner.
That's wonderful. So when you talk about capital market specific, is it, if I'm assuming, say, all the IFRS 9s and all the disclosures came, that you were instrumental in bringing all those?
No, I was not instrumental. I'm part of the committee. Obviously, there are like 18, 20 people in the committee. So
I think that would be safe for you to say this way, because a lot of people who are on the affected side of, you know, all these disclosures on IFRS 9.
It keeps chartered accountants busy, right?
Busy. Thank you so much for that, sir. And moving on from this phase into abacus, coming to that phase. This is something, you know, which is coming again out of the blue, you know, from the path what you've been doing so far. So we would like to understand your mindset and what went through when you decided that you want to get into abacus.
So see, I told you, I joined Reliance Mutual Fund. We were only 50 crores in assets. One thing which we did was, you know, we had no background of fund management, so we had an open slate, open mind, and sometimes it is good. And as I said, we focused on companies with balance sheet. But one thing also we did was, we believed that India grows because of entrepreneurs and despite the government, which we still continue to believe. And we focused on companies which were driven more by entrepreneurs. And within 5 years, from being 35th out of 35 mutual funds, by 2008, we were number 1 in terms of size. You know, so this 50 crores had become 35,000 crores in equity assets, 1 lakh crore in total assets. We were like 50% larger than the second mutual fund at that point of time. And you know, all along, I think I graduated into becoming the CIO equities there. And by 2017, I was managing like $11–12 billion. The total fund house was 3 lakh crores. At that point of time, I started to say that, you know, now I have some 15 years ahead of me, maybe professionally, maybe slightly more. And all my life, I have backed entrepreneurs. And here, you know, India is shining. India has such huge opportunity. I'm checking out becoming an entrepreneur myself. So that was a trigger point. It took me a year to convince my bosses to let me go. But finally, in early 2018, we set up abacus. And I think God has been kind. I think we have done pretty well. So within 5 years, we are almost 24–25,000 crores in assets.
Oh wow! This deserves a great applause.
No, thank you.
Fantastic achievement. So just to wrap up matters, there are a lot of young chartered accountants who have come out and not just qualified, and with bright eyes, with dollar symbols, shining in their eyes, and they have got a lot of options. Like, I'm sure when you started your career, you said pretty much the options were very limited, and you were like forced to go to something, but then you found your passion. What is your advice to these young CAs regarding the career options available to them in today's world and what they can do?
No, I think it's a very relevant question. I keep on getting, calls, and young guys do come. I've been very actively involved, first with my CFA thing, and even now I go to universities to give guest lectures and teach. It is very obvious that these young guys have so many options that so many options are confusing them.
Right.
The other thing is that I see that most of these young guys are always looking at the option which is going to make them the most money, not necessarily what is going to give them the most satisfaction.
Right.
So, which is very different, and I think somewhere you have to balance it, because obviously, everyone wants to get rich. The only problem is everyone wants to get rich tomorrow. So, from a young chartered accountant's perspective, there are a lot of options.
Right.
Obviously, capital market is emerged as a great option, but everything which any young professional, he or she would want to do, they have to give time to it.
Right.
I have seen that. I have also 2 young kids. The span of interest and attention is reducing. And that means that they get bored very fast.
Very fast.
So, we hire a lot of people now at Abacus, and every 3 months some analyst will come and say that now I want to do something different. I want to do something different again and again. Now, from an organization perspective, yes, you would want to encourage everyone to learn most, but at the same time, you just can't be operating a tuition class. So, why I am bringing it up is, for a young budding professional, they have to give time to what they have set out to do. They just can't be hoping that you're 24, a chartered accountant, you become an analyst, and within 1 year you'll become a fund manager, and within 2 years you'll set up your own company. It's not going to happen. You have to give time. The other thing is, every professional will be good at something. It's not going to be the case that everyone is good at the same thing, or everyone is good at everything. So I think when you start to work, it is possible that the young professional realizes that maybe the number crunching is not for me, or working on a particular sector is not for me, or maybe fund management is not for me. It's possible. So I might be having an interest in acting, but I can't be a good actor, right? So that one should realize, and one should then at least work towards something where your interest also lies.
They need to discover themselves and give
Yes. So I think age is on your side. Obviously, the country is great, at least if you are looking at doing something in India. Give time and you will reach there. But it's not the end. Like, if you can't be a good analyst or a can't fund manager, it's not the end. There are so many options now available. You have the knowledge processing industries, you have ancillaries which are there, investment banking, you have the core banking, the private wealth. I think there's so many options. And the core auditing. Now, if no one is going to go in auditing, obviously after a few years you'll have shortage of auditors also.
Exactly.
And then there are so many now acts, laws. You need good professionals. I think one thing is that if you become a chartered accountant, you will not go hungry ever in your life.
Absolutely. Now, with just related to this question, what I thought was, just to close off, now today everybody is talking about this artificial intelligence and all that's going to come as a disruption to a chartered accountant's work. Now, obviously the research and the number crunching part of it, of the equity, if I have to look at it, equity markets, is already taken care by AI. So what is the reskilling that you will advise to the young chartered accountants that they need to have? Because they came with certain set of skills earlier. but currently they need to reskill because of the AI.
Yeah,
What's
right.
your advice to them?
So I think reskilling is going to be very important, and the cycles are getting shorter. So maybe earlier you might have required reskilling every 5-10 years. Now will require every couple of years, which it's a matter of fact. You know, no one can hide from it, and if you don't, you will be left behind. That is very, very clear. Having said that, I think artificial intelligence is a new subject, but I think very interesting and scary at the same time. Scary because it can be misused to a large extent. Scary for someone who believes that they will replace human beings.
Yes.
And interesting for someone who believes that it can aid their efficiency. So I am in the second camp. I think artificial intelligence of any kind would aid in our efficiency. So as you rightly said, the basic number crunching might be done by AI faster. But see, ultimately anything you do in life is not only one thing. It's art, science, logic, numbers all put together. And logic is something which is very different for different people. You know, so I think there's huge opportunity. Even using AI, you can maybe, you know, make yourself much more efficient and take it a little bit more positively. From a chartered accountant perspective, see, they're smart people. That's why they've cleared the CA exam, you know. So I think they are actually in a better position to grasp something new. But you have to have an open mind. Earlier when computerization started, everyone was scared that now with computerization what will happen, because balance sheet tallying used to take 2 to 3 days, if you remember.
Exactly, yes.
And then, you know, automatically it got tallied. So it's fine. I think as human beings will progress. When cars came in, all the bullock cart guys got threatened. There is a Hindi movie called Naya Daur, Dilip Kumar, very good songs. The whole concept of that movie was that there's a village and all the villagers, the only occupation is their tangawalas. So they ferry people from the village to the station and back. And then a bus comes and all the tangawalas are out of job. You know. So I think as human beings will progress, there will be some jobs which will be threatened, but they will evolve and start reskilling to do something else. So I think even in AI, we have to use them to our advantage rather than treat them as our threat.
As our threat. So, sir, thank you very much for your time with us, and what you have given as advice to these youngsters, I would say not only fits for the youngsters, but all of us experienced people also take a lot of message out of what you just said, especially the reskilling and way that we need to look at AI as far as an enablers. Pretty much works very much to all we experienced people, because we are the ones who are first feeling the threatening feeling that okay, now we'll be replaced, so that's something about it. We thank you once more for your time.
Thanks for having me. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We look forward to more and more of your visits here to us in Kuwait, so that we can keep all our community over here with full of wisdom. Thank you so much.
My honor. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
You guys were great.